on the super review, let's take a look at the Fiio FA1. All right, so here we got the Fiio FA1, which is Fiio's latest in-ear monitor. And what appeals to me about this is a couple of things. One, as you're gonna see when we unbox this thing looks really cool. I mean, if you're into a nerdy red and blue look, and I am, I think this thing looks really cool. This is kind of like as an in-ear monitor style, it looks like it's kind of molded to fit inside your ear, similar to something like the 10Hz P4 Pro. And also similar to the 10Hz P4 Pro, this is a balanced armature set. There's no dynamic drivers here. Unlike the 10Hz P4 Pro, this is only a single balanced armature. And I'm actually, that personally kind of appeals to me, because most BA headphones that I've been hearing, they're just like cramming a ton of BAs into those headphones, and it's not necessarily making the headphones sound better. I'm really curious to see what Fiio has done with a single balanced armature driver, and it's worth calling out that BA driver is from Knowles. So let's go ahead and open it up. We'll find out what we get inside the box of the Fiio FA1. I'll give it a listening test, run it against my reference library and music. I'll compare these to the Fiio FH1, which is another Fiio headset that I've got here, as well as the 10Hz P4 Pro, because I think it's in a similar price range and kind of a similar style headphone. But obviously they're executing on this version of a headphone very differently. So let's go ahead and check it out. Who needs fidget spinners when you got Fiio boxes? Dude, I'm pretty impressed with that spin. Which is, we already know that's the most important part of a headphone, so we might as well just go ahead and go away and call these things winners. Or not. Let's go ahead and find out what's inside the box, but first we can do a quick tour. Fiio boxes typically are pretty minimal. They're attractive packaging, but they don't tell you a lot about it. So we know it's from Fiio, we know the model is FA1, and we know that it's got a Knowles balanced armature driver. And that's just a brand name of driver. They make drivers for a bunch of different headphones, as well as for, I think, medical equipment, for medical grade hearing aids and stuff like that. So typically pretty consistent performance. Now, how it's tuned, that's very much up to the company making the headphone, and that's what we'll find out about this thing. Over here, nothing. Down here in the back, full sequence, single balanced armature driver. So again, that's just letting us know there's only one balanced armature driver in here, which is pretty unique. Most balanced armature headphones, they're trying a bunch of different drivers in it to try and cover the full range frequency of typical music. The FA1, it's doing it with one. We'll have to find out if it does it well, but before that, we gotta unbox this thing. All right, so we got the Fiio FA1 completely unboxed, and this is what you get for $100. Not a bad little package. Very similar to what we got with the $70 Fiio FH1, but here, actually a little bit less, and frankly, I'm not mad about it. Let's start up here. You do get, of course, your instruction manual, and interestingly, they give you a little mini paintbrush. They don't provide any paints, but maybe you could use these for cleaning the ear tips or something like that. I don't know. I wonder if they thought of that. You do get two different styles of ear tips, including a wide bore and a narrow bore. And of course, in each style, you get them in smalls, mediums, and larges. Interestingly, they've got what look like the narrow bores and mediums pre-installed. Typically, I found that wide bores tend to get pre-installed, but I don't know, these things look pretty handsome, and I'm hoping that these are the ones I like, just because, well, I'm pretty superficial and I like the way they look. Like the Fiio FA1, they do give you a nice little carrying case, and this is kind of like a Pelican style case that I think it's a nice touch they include that. That is a little overkill for my personal purposes, but if this is your only in-ear, I think it's actually kind of nice to have something like this that can store all your stuff and keep it in one place. And then we get to the cable, which has got this nice kind of wound style. It's not really a braid, but it's a nice tight wind. It looks pretty handsome. It's not holding its shape or anything like that, which is actually a really good sign for a cable fresh out of the box. Down here, you do have this kind of pre-installed or fixed little cable tie, a little rubberized cable tie, and I'm not the biggest fan of this. You can cut it off if you don't want it, and I might end up doing that, but if you want that, if you want to have something that's always going to hold these things and keep them tidy, that's kind of a nice little touch. Up here at the Y, we've got a little metal piece with the Fiio logo on it and a little chin cinch, which seems actually surprisingly really well functional. Of course, we've got preformed ear hooks, and kind of like the Fiio FH1, these things are a little bit on the plasticky side. I'm not the biggest fan of these things. But that's being a little bit nitpicky, because we get to the buds and these things, I don't know, is this coming across? These things are gorgeous. Oh, I love the way these things look. They're surprisingly lightweight, frankly, for a solid piece of plastic like these things are. And these things are solid. These are not hollow. These things are nice solid pieces that kind of look like glass. They look a lot like glass. And I think that's a really nice look. On the outside, you do have this kind of nice little wavy pattern that, again, I think this is a nice look. And then inside you can see that one single Knowles balanced armature driver connected directly to the nozzle. And then you look at the nozzle and it does not appear that there's any screen there. I'm interested to see what these things sound like, which I guess gets me to the next step in this review, which is I gotta hook these things up to my Walkman, give them a listening test, and I'll compare these to, I'm actually really interested in comparing these to two specific headphones that I've got. I wanna compare them to the Fiio FH1, which is a $70 headphone. These, I don't know if I said it, but these things are a $100 headphone. So they are more expensive than the FH1, but the FH1, the sound signature was really bassy and kind of dark, which is not my preference. These things, well, I'm interested to find out if these things more closely match my preference. The other headphone I want to compare these things to is the 10Hz P4 Pro, which, if you saw my review on that, you know that that is a sound signature that does match my preference. It's just kind of a very natural, not quite airy, but it's a pretty natural, neutral sound that I think is just done really, really well. And these things, well, they look similar to the 10Hz P4 Pro. Will they sound similar? That's what we'll find out. All right, so I've been listening to the Fiio FA1 quite a bit, running these things against my reference library of music, a little De La Soul, some Michael Jackson, a lot of Alice in Chains. And I gotta say, I really, really like this headphone. In fact, of all the Fiio products that I've listened to, all the Fiio products I've reviewed so far, this is by far my favorite. To start with, let's talk about the build of the Fiio FA1. And just right away, look, the aesthetic of this headphone is exactly what I like. It's simple, but it's got kind of like a nerdy appeal to it with that blue and red coloring that you're not gonna see on most mainstream headphones. And I don't know why it is. I like nerdy looking things. I like things that have blue and red on them. And frankly, I think, look, the FA1 is just a really nice looking set. The buds are made out of this solid plastic. It is solid. And they're pretty nice looking in and of themselves, but then you look on like the outside and it's got this kind of nice pattern that almost looks metallic and it changes in the light. Just a really nice little touch on a headphone that's, you know, $100, so it's not super cheap, but this is also definitely not the most expensive headphone out there. I think for this price, I can't think of anything that looks this cool. But apart from just looking cool, I think these things actually are really comfortable to wear, at least in my ears. They're molded and kind of similar to something like the 10Hz P4 Pro or even the DMG DM6, but I think these buds are a little bit smaller than either of those. And that has two results. One, I think they're more comfortable, like they don't fill up my ear and like feel a little bit bulky in my ear like those other ones can. I still think that the P4 Pro and the DM6 are pretty comfortable, but these are, in my opinion, these are more comfortable and these are gonna fit more people. The other result of that smaller bud size is that these don't quite seal out outside sound the same as the DM6 or especially the P4 Pro. So if sound isolation is a big issue for you, you might still prefer something like the 10 Hz P4 Pro. Personally, I'm perfectly happy with this fit. And then we get to this cable, which I think is a pretty nice cable. It's not the best cable in this price range. I think, the TIN T3 has got the best cable under $100, but I'm not gonna hold those to that standard because not only is that the best cable under $100, it's probably the best cable I've seen with any in-ear monitor. This right here is perfectly good. It's got a nice drape to it. It is just a simple wound cable, and I think it is the same cable that Fiio ships with the FH1, which I reviewed before. The FH1 came with actually two different cables. It came with a 3.5 millimeter and a 2.5 millimeter. And with the FH1, the 2.5 millimeter cable was the one that was this nice wound style. And unfortunately, I didn't really get to use it because my players don't have a balanced output. I get to use this cable because it's got a 3.5 millimeter adapter, and that I like. So now that brings us to talking about the sound of the FA1, and that is where these things totally deliver to my preferences. They might not be to your preferences though. So let me describe what these things sound like, and you can decide whether or not it's what you want. My impression of the sound is that these are a very natural, clean sound with a nice, upper mid-range and treble emphasis. The bass on these is pretty light. There is not a lot of sub bass on these, and I do like me some sub bass, but I don't need sub bass. If you really need sub bass, I think you might actually be disappointed with the FA1. But for me, it's not a big deal. The bigger thing that I want to avoid in headphones is I don't want a lot of mid bass, and I don't want a lot of mid bass bleeding into the mid-range and making it feel kind of cloudy. And you don't get that at all with the FA1. It's just, again, a very clean and natural sound. The treble does have, it's not a spiky treble definitely, but it does have kind of a sense of rawness to it, which I'm actually a fan of. Some people it might be a little bit annoying. Look, it's not a spiky treble. This is not the most trebly headphone out there. And I do tend to be a little bit of a treble head. So for me, that rawness in the treble, it just gives it a little bit of extra, I don't know, a little bit of extra texture, I guess, that makes it a really exciting headphone. I don't think the sound stage is particularly large on these. It's decent. The instrument separation is pretty solid. And I think a lot of the sense of space that I do get out of these, which again is not massive, but what I do get, I'm attributing to that sort of raw treble character. Again, I think it's very pleasant, but if you're treble sensitive, you might have an issue with it. If you're into a bassy headphone, you might have an issue with it. But if you like just a natural, clean sound with a little bit of bite, a little bit of pepper just kind of sprinkled in there, I think you'll really like the sound of the FA1. I did listen to these back to back with the 10 Hz P4 Pro because I think they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. The P4 Pro also has emphasis on like the upper mid range, a little bit less treble on the P4 Pro, and a little bit more sub bass on the P4 Pro. So if that sounds more to your liking, you might actually prefer the 10 Hz. For me, I have a hard time deciding between the two, honestly. Like, I like that rawness in the treble, and I don't really miss the bass that much. That said, when I listen to the P4 Pro, that's also an excellent sounding headphone in a similar price range to this. So if I were to rate the Fiio FA1 out of 5 stars, look, this is a really, really easy 5 stars for me. I love the build, I love the aesthetics of this thing, I love the fit and the comfort, I love the sound. It's just a nice, natural, neutral-ish sound. If you're looking for bass, I would suggest you look elsewhere, but if you want just a nice clean sound with a nice emphasis on vocals and I don't know, just a nice naturalness to it, something that fits good and looks great, I think the Fiio FA1 is a really, really good option. If you're interested in checking out the Fiio FA1, of course, I've got links in the description down below. While you're down there, you can hit the like button for the video if you liked it. You can subscribe to the channel, and then I'll see you in the next super review.